Okay, to my great frustration, Material UI has decided to reach 1.0 right here at the end of our quarter, and I think we ought to update our code so that you don't end up with outdated code. So what I would do here is go to the directory where you're currently working, and if you can possibly deal with a branch, I would go git branch update Material UI. There's a shorter way to do this, but I'm gonna just step by step since some of you aren't familiar with this. Check out update Material UI. Now we've got a place where we can do our work and we don't affect our main code. So we can see if it works, and then if it doesn't, we can go back. Now I'm going to take one moment here just to check some things out. Okay, so if you go to the directions, you will see the first thing to do is to update to the new code. We add in at Material UI core, at Material UI icons, and we remove at Material UI. So this is the way they express 1.0. This is kind of common for them. It looks confusing. It is confusing, but we need to update. And here it is with npm. Okay, so we go here to the root of our project, and it might be the client directory for some of my courses. And we'll go ahead and we'll install the new and we'll remove the old. Okay, and here's the remove the old. And then the next suggestion is to, if you need to, make sure you have the most recent code from JS objects and that you've run create symbolic links recently. I guess maybe I oughta. You go SLB and then you do create symbolic links and it runs. It didn't do anything on my system because I've already run it. Then if you do that, you'll have a utility called findNP on your system. And what this is going to do is update all of the references to the old style to the new style of import statements. So here is the old style, and then we're going to go and we'll paste that in, and now you can see it's been adjusted to the new style. Okay, so it's got the add in front of it and it's got the core and styles and so on. Okay, so we might as well, while we're on a roll here, do the same thing for our raised buttons. So if you've got any raised buttons, which I'm sure you do, we should also change them because they have changed also. The changing here is fairly heavy. The name changed from raised button to button. I'll explain more later. And then if you can see here, it's changed from raised button to button, and this thing has changed from raised button to button. So that did a lot of the work that was necessary to get you going, but it doesn't do all the work, but it helps you get started with this project. So now let's take a really simple, I give you a more complex index.js down here with more options to it, and you might enjoy playing with those more options, but let's just do the simple one for now. And I I I don't think it's my fault, but I feel bad that you had to make this change right at the end of the course. So I'm just giving it to you. This is the way they do it now. Okay, so there was some changes in the way themes are done. You might want to look at the other example to see more depth of how this actually works. But just delete everything and paste in the new. And Another thing while we're at it is go through app.cs and delete everything that has to do with the background color. So if you see places where it says background color, just delete it. Okay. All right. Because the new system will take care of the color for us. So here's the more complex system. Here's an example where you get a theme with purple for your primary and your secondary buttons will be green or secondary items will be green. But let's not worry about that. And then I'll paste in, I don't know what the correct order to do this in. They have refactored their code in such a way that you can run with an elf header that'll almost make sense all the time. You'll only have to make minor edits to it. So, hold on one second. So here's the elf header, the old one. We just delete everything in it and paste in the new one. The syntax for app bar and for drawer has changed. Then what they've decided to do is the menu items, which was a good call. They've put their menu items in a separate file, which we're calling tile data. And so we can grab this one. And for one of my classes, this is pretty much exactly what you want. For the other, you'll have to do a little editing of it. So we'll go to the components. We'll create a new file called tile data. Oh, I did something wrong. Create a new JavaScript file called tile data, and we paste in the contents of this. Let me show you what we've got here now. So we've got our bar has come back. You can see the buttons aren't showing up, but everything else has been replaced. And right now you can see these aren't the right items for one class, and certainly the icons are wrong for either class. You'd have to do some work to get them straightened out. But we can go into this tile data file, and for this particular class that I'm working with, we really only need one list item, and it would be called, for home, and it would just be called address. And your mileage would differ if you're in another course. And this one would be called get file, and the link to it is get file. So this part right here is still your link item that we got from React Router DOM. Now I've deleted a couple items here, so a couple of these, whoops. These guys go away. And now you can see that this one goes to get file and this one goes to address. So we got things rolling here. You could, I'm bringing out two items and I'm putting them one with a divider between them. See the little divider there? You could put them all in one section if you wanted. You could arrange things differently depending on what you want to do. So in other words, you don't need to have two items that you export from this file. You could export only one. Notice that we export them by name rather than by default. And so in elf header, we import them by name here with a curly brace syntax. And down here we have a funny little thing where we create a div with a list from the get items and the demo items. I'll leave it up to you to figure out what you can do. This obviously works. So all of that is good. Now the only thing that's really left here are the buttons. And Um, we'll go back here. We'll scroll down to the buttons, and there are two new fields called variant raised, which means we used a button and then we say variant raised rather than we use a raised button, and color primary. So I'm going to come over here to our program. I'll go to get file. I'll add in those two items and get rid of primary equals true. And then now you can see it showing up and it works. I don't think I'll show you any more than that. That's all. You can figure out the rest of it from there. As you can see, the whole process really didn't take me that long. It is painful to see. The one thing I'll add that we have to make this change right now, and the change is so extreme, we had to change every single element we were using. Frustrating. Those little said utilities, which work fine on Linux, should help people move quickly through this process. Most people. Um, the one other thing I'd say is, why did they do this? I don't think they did the greatest job with it. It seems more complex than it was before. But what their argument is was that they had originally written this wrapper around Material, which is the Google Material, this whole look and feel made by Google, and they'd written this wrapper around it for React called Material UI. And it worked for many of the features. But as they dug into it more, they began to realize there were some features of Material they couldn't access, so that they couldn't get 100% of Material. And so they rewrote everything in order to make sure they could use pretty close to everything that's part of Google's Material in Material UI. So that's the reasoning, or as best I understand the reasoning.